Hello humans, it's just Martine and welcome to the Heartstopper book tag. This book tag, book/movie and film tag was created by Mel over at a book fiend named Mel. I'll have all the information linked down in the description. Let's jump straight into it. Number 1, LGBTQIA+ rep, a book that has great LGBTQIA+ rep. First, I'm just gonna drop you some plain old author recommendations because these authors consistently write great queer literature. That's Alice Oseman, obviously. Yes, Alice Oseman is going to be recommended in like every single one of these. Alexis Hall, he's great. He typically writes romance, both historical romance and contemporary romance, all very queer, multiple types of representation in queer characters. Love it, love it, love it. And then Becky Chambers. Space, but make it gay. Some specific book recommendations. Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. This was the first chance that I had to read a gender fluid main character. I loved it so much. I thought Jeff Garvin did a really great job with this. Winter's Orbit. More space, but make it gay. This one not only focused on a queer relationship, but it also just brought in so many discussions about gender expression and things of the like, while being an absolute AO3 delight. And a TV show recommendation, if you haven't watched it, Uncoupled, starring Neil Patrick Harris. Absolutely yes. I watched it in one weekend, just like I did with Heartstopper. Obviously a very different tone from Heartstopper because it's an adult show. It also kind of focuses on queer heartbreak, then finding queer joy outside of relationships. So it's like, it's a toss-up, but really fun time. I enjoyed it. And it's Neil Patrick Harris. What is not to love? Number 2, great rep. Books, movies, TV shows with other fantastic representation. For this, if it's not representation that I hold, I specifically looked towards the majority own voices authors. All Alice Oseman has great representation outside of the LGBTQIA+ community. However, Alice Oseman does not fit into those communities, so I cannot particularly speak to their accuracy, as I also don't belong to those communities, but they are present. For some own voices representation for autism, On the Edge of Gone is a really great sci-fi book with really fantastic own voices autism representation. For a bunch of mental health rep, specifically depression, The Memory of Light by Francisco X. Stork follows a group of teenagers in a psychiatric ward. This next one, definitely not own voices, but just so spectacularly done and clinically accurate. Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus is a middle grade book about a disabled youth. I forget her name, I'm so sorry. She's born without arms. She moves to a new town and she starts making friends with different people, including one boy who has Tourette's. Overall, this was just such a heartwarming book, but it also looked at the difficulties of disability. I appreciated that it did not shy away from those things. I myself am disabled, but did not fit into any of the disability rep talked about in the book. So I can't speak to its accuracy, but I can speak to its impact. And then for some religious and racial representation, Punching the Air by Edie Savoy and Yusuf Salam has own voices, POC, and Islamic representation, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's told entirely in verse. It's about the incarceration system, particularly incarcerated youth. Loved it with all my heart. Number 3, romance, a book, TV, movie that has a great romantic subplot or plot. I just realized there are a lot of space books in this. That's fine. The Illuminate Files has such great romance just because it's really light and fun. The rest of the series, like every other part of it, is incredibly devastating, serious. The banter, particularly between all the love interests, is like the only lighthearted part of it at all. And I absolutely love banter. So A+. Not to mention that one of the voice actors is one of my favorite voice actors who does audiobooks. McLeod Andrews plays Nick Malikov in Gemina. He also, I think, might play somebody else. And Nick does appear in the 3rd book, Obsidio, but he's mainly featured in Gemina as Nick Malikov, and I love him so much, so that's just an addition. The reason I love him so much as a voice actor is because he narrates the Kingdom Keepers series on audiobook, and I've listened to those things on audiobook so many times, it's not even funny. His voice is like particularly comforting to me because of that. The Bromance Book Club books are some of my favorite romance books of all time. First of all, they follow the male perspective, which I feel like is pretty rare in romance books for the entirety of the series to revolve around that male perspective. Also, although it deals with serious topics, it so puts the comedy in rom-com. it so puts the comedy in rom-com. I absolutely adore it. It's just about this group of guys who get together. They have a romance book club where they talk about treating their partners better and being better romantic partners. And it's incredible and very funny. All Alice Oseman books have the best relationship representation in my mind. Some of them it is romantic, like things with Heartstopper and having Nick and Charlie and whatever. Some of them it is entirely platonic magic, and so few authors really stick to platonic magic and don't include any romantic subplots. So I really admire Alice Oseman for including that instead of romantic subplots for all their main characters. Number 4, YA, a book, TV show, or movie that really represents accurately the teenage experience. So the reason I'm going to say To All the Boys I've Loved Before, particularly the book, the movies were still great, but I'm particularly talking about the first book, is because I felt like the voice was so true to the voice of a teenager. A lot of people have said to me that this voice sounds incredibly immature, and I'm like, yeah, she's like, what, 14? 15, she sounds exactly right. I can see in her thought patterns that I had just a couple years ago when I was in that age range. So I think it's very true to form about the teenage experience in that way. Of course, with all the like fake dating tropes and this and that, it's not realistic to teenage life. It's still fiction, but I really felt like the voice captured the essence of being a teenager quite well. You Asked for Perfect by Laura Silverman. I absolutely loved this book. Not only does it fit the teenage experience really well, particularly like the burned out gifted kid in my opinion, and the absolute stress that high school puts on all kids and the schooling system in general, but it also has Jewish-owned voices representation, LGBTQIA plus representation, and mental health representation. So this book is just chocked full of good things. It's a bit of a hard read because the main character is having an incredibly difficult time, but it's absolutely worth it in my opinion. Alice Oseman continues to write some of the most true to form teenager books. My favorite is Radio Silence. I really felt seen in that book. And like, I feel like the teenage experience was also seen. Like the teenage to young adult experience was just captured so well. Alice Oseman published their first book when they were 19. That was Solitaire. So they were really writing from the experience and the mindset of a teenager, which I appreciate. Number 5, graphic novels. The original source material is a graphic novel or comic. I'm really not big into graphic novels, but one that I will recommend for you is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I've heard some mixed things about Tilly Walden's other works, but this one was just so good. It's kind of chunky for a graphic novel, but it follows this restoration crew in space, and particularly this one girl who got separated from her girlfriend at boarding school. So it's queer and spacey and fabulous. All of my favorite things. I also really particularly liked the art style in this, and art styles and I really don't always gel. Number 6, Nick Nelson, lovable golden retriever. A character that is just lovable, gentle, sweet, and all around puppy energy. Arthur from the What If It's Us duology, absolutely yes, golden retriever, my love. It took me a while to figure out this answer because I couldn't stop thinking about Nick Nelson and how well he fits into this question, which is obviously the point. It's a question based off of him. But yeah, Arthur from the What If It's Us duology, absolutely. I'm thinking about the funny ties. I'm thinking about like how excitable he is, like his personality. He's just so excited about everything. Absolutely, he's just a golden retriever running around New York City. Number 7, Charlie Spring, shy nerdy boy, a character that is a sweet shy nerd. This one was really hard for me to like put a finger on because a lot of times main characters like start sweet, shy, and nerdy, and then they like absolutely explode into like somebody saving the world. And I feel like with Charlie Spring, we have a great main character who doesn't have to be a superhero and save the world, and is still sweet, shy, and nerdy by the end of the series instead of entirely changing his personality. So I wanted to capture that with a character that followed that same journey. So I chose the female main character from 5 Feet Apart. I really cannot remember her name, but she was absolutely sweet, shy, and nerdy. She had her outgoing moments, but she never fully broke out of her shell. She did take up a couple risks near the end, but not nearly the same way that some characters change throughout the course of a book. She was designing her own app, documenting her life with cystic fibrosis, so it also has chronic illness representation, although I can't speak to that particular chronic illness representation. Also, like any John Green main character is a sweet, shy, nerdy character. I'm thinking of the main character of An Abundance of Catherines, Paper Towns, Turtles All the Way Down, Looking for Alaska. They're all sweet, shy, nerdy. That's kind of what John Green writes. So anything by John Green fits into that. The Fault in Our Stars. Okay, yeah. all John Green fits into it. I don't want to put the pressure on anyone in particular to do this, so I'll just shout out some of my booktube friends who I know really like Heartstopper. They can do this if they want, ignore it if they don't, and if I don't tag you, you can still pretend like I did. So, Lauren, Bailey, Kayla, Amy, and Rylan. I know you all love Heartstopper, so I just wanted to point this in your direction in case you were at all interested. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you have book recommendations or TV show recommendations or movie recommendations that fit any of these questions, because I'd love some. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!